Hello, and welcome to the after party behind the mic, where a bunch of amateur voice actors hang out and talk about voice acting things, except today is a bit of a special case because we don't have ourselves an amateur here today. We have ourselves an industry professional. You might know them as Anju from Love Live, Sailor Tin Nyanko from Sailor Moon, Mizuki in Somnium Files. We've got also the Tornado of Terror, Tatsumaki from One Punch Man, and of course, everyone's favorite food ration, travel guide, Paimon from Genshin Impact. We have Corina in our midst today. How are you doing today, Corina?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. And for anyone wondering, my name is Wilhelmina. I'm your host today. I'm joined by my friend Edmund here.
Hey guys, how's it going?
And I guess one of my first questions, and this is something that we've kind of experienced ourselves through our journey into voice acting, is some of the very first roles that we are going for are just these kind of just out of the blue random roles that we audition for. And I'm wondering, I know that Sailor Moon, the Tin Nyanko, was one of your first like major roles that you got into, but what were some roles that you've been voice acting or just acting in general for a long time. Since you were 5 years old, you've been involved in theater. And I guess I'm wondering, what were some roles that you've done in the past that you probably wouldn't list maybe on a resume, or some things that you're like, no, I want to get into it. I'm gonna audition for whatever and see what comes out of it.
Well, first, actually, I don't think Sailor Tin Nyanko was my biggest role that I booked, considering, as far as like role size goes, she's only in one season. And technically speaking, I believe I was already, I had booked by that point, already, Marsh Tato Mary, which was a DreamWorks project for Trolls The Beat Goes On. Of course, like, American animation is not necessarily like the focal point for a lot of people, but considering like the how much it's paid, because the pay difference is much different, I would consider working with DreamWorks a much bigger deal. Like don't get me wrong, I was ecstatic to work on Sailor Moon just because Sailor Moon was like my first big anime ever, but as far as like biggest role, that's not necessarily what I would consider it. And also I'm like blanking on my own resume at that point, at this point, but like I also worked on, by that point, with Cartoon Network on a Cartoon Network short where I was the lead character, or a lead character in that. And so since Sailor Tin Nyanko is really more of a co-star or a villain character, technically speaking, I would think that those characters were kind of bigger. But as far as anime goes, maybe it was. I think there was even one that I booked before that was more of a main character than that, but I time is an illusion and who cares. That being said though, the stuff that I don't necessarily put on my resume is like, basically, and nobody really puts this on their resume, but Walla, which is basically any of the background, like, incidentals are one thing. It's basically like character boy A, in episode 2 or something like that. But you actually can put that on your resume. But generally speaking, in acting, you don't want to put Walla on your resume. And the reason why is because you don't want to come off even though if you did Walla, it's not credited. So people might not know this, but I did Walla on Kill la Kill season 2. I did Walla on Your Lie in April. And then I believe I did Walla on a completely other show, but I forgot what that was because it was so long ago. But generally speaking, like, you don't put Walla on your resume just because it's uncredited. So you really can't put it on your resume. And nobody really announces when they do Walla because it's so in the background. Now, you absolutely can announce when you do incidentals, which would be characters like Boy A in a blue hat, or Ice Cream Girl B in episode 2. You can put that on your resume, but you just call those incidentals at that point. And this is on my website resume, where I did that. Technically, that would actually be my first anime if we want to speak on like incidentals, which would be not Magia Record, Magia Rebellion, the movie. I was incidentals in that, and that was like my first time I was actually like characters in something, I guess, like beyond just Walla. And then Anju Yuki would be my first named character in Love Live, that anime. So, basically the Walla things that I just mentioned to you are definitely not on my resume. So, not many people talk about that as much. But Walla, although it basically, I mean, we all treat it like it is still a professional part of the industry. It is also still a stepping stone to possibly get, most voice actors don't get their first lead role until they've already been a voice actor for a really long time. So it's all about stepping stones. First, you work in Walla for a little bit, and then you might get some incidental jobs at that point, and then you'll probably get your first named character that might be in a few different episodes, and then maybe you're a guest star, and then you finally get, a lead character where you're like throughout the entire series. But yeah.
I think it's kind of funny that that's like a lot of people starting out too. They're auditioning for like named characters for roles, but it's like it's a lot less likely to get that kind of stuff than. And also, it's kind of interesting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah. There's often times where you audition and you don't get what you were auditioning for. For example, with Sailor Tin Nyanko, I didn't audition for her at all. I originally auditioned for the Sailor Stars, those 3 characters. That's what I was given the audition for, and then 3 months later, I was finally told, "Hey, we're gonna hire you as Sailor Tin Nyanko," and it was based off of those auditions. So they didn't need to hear an audition from me. They already knew, from that we want them as this, and that happens quite a lot, that you audition for something and then end up getting something else. That's also happened to me in I've been killing slimes for 300 years. I maxed out my level. I auditioned for the lead characters, the lead witch, the dragon, and the 2 girl slimes. I ended up getting Demon King Pakora, but I didn't audition for that character at all. I auditioned for those other 4 characters, and that happens quite a bit.
And a lot of times too, I find that once you're a little like further in and you're voicing the main roles too, it starts to become like the opposite, where it's like they bring you in for a main role and they're like, "Hey, can you do some of these other side characters too while we have you here?" It's that's kind of how I started.
It saves time and money a lot of the time. So usually when they have you as a main character, if they have time at the end, they'll be like, "Oh, we need this boy 3A. You can do that, right? Let's do it." And actually, I believe it's for my daughter, I'd even kill a demon lord or whatever. I think that's what it's called. I play Chloe in that, and that's my main character in it. But I also voice a lot of other like individual little like minor, like I'm a mom in one of the episodes. Because why not? So yeah, it happens. And then also there is also what's called a utility actor in some certain situations. For something that's not very well known, that I'm in, Toka Life, I was brought in as a utility actor, quote unquote, meaning I am literally there to voice many different characters. I voiced 2 different characters' mothers in that show. I voiced an ice cream cone. I don't understand it either. And then I also voiced another I believe it was an octopus character. Yeah. And then a whole bunch of other random characters in between. Because when you are literally brought in as the utility actor, that is your job, to voice all of the characters that are not being covered by the main cast.
Oh, that's really fun. So was it a sort of case where So do you audition for like the utility actor, or is that more just like an opportunity that came across?
You can audition for the utility actor, and I actually did. They really sent out an audition piece that they had 4 different characters and were just like audition for these characters. They don't necessarily tell you it's for the utility role until you get in there, and they're like, so you're gonna be voicing like all of those characters you auditioned for and these other characters too. And I'm like, oh, which was interesting because like as an actor, you start to put yourself into a box because you start getting typecast a lot. And at the time I was like, I'm only going to be children for the rest of my life. I'm only going to be hired as children. That's it. That's my entire career. And I put myself in this box, and my mentor, Charlie Adler, actually scolded me on that. Which I'm glad he did, because he knows to kick me in the butt when I need it. But he was like, you are over the age of 18. And I was like, yes. And he's like, so if you are over the age of 18, you're an adult, correct? And I was like, yes. So adults sound like you. And I go, I mean, technically, yes. And he's like, so then why would you not voice adults when you are an adult? And I was like, you're right.
Valid point.
But that was like, because I always thought I was just in this tiny little box of only voicing children. And then that was my first time really actually experimenting with my range and being like, oh my God, I can voice these adults. And I can also, and I voiced 2 different adults. I thought I only had 1 adult voice in me, and I voiced 2 of them, and I made them
like,
sound
I'm
different.
an adult?
I'm an adult and I can voice them? What? That's nuts. And then on top of it, all of these other characters in there also like it was also while it was actually on For My Daughter I'd Even Kill a Demon Lord, because I'm voicing Chloe. They were like, can you do a cat? And I was like, I can try. Funny thing, turns out I do a really good cat sound. Who knew? And I never messed with that before, but now I'm like, how have I not been messing with that? I should be messing with that. Like, I get people in, because I also teach, and I have students that are like, I don't think I can do creature noises. And I was like, I disagree with that. I absolutely do. Now, do I think you might be able to do the things Kellen Goff can do? Maybe not, but everybody can make creature sounds. It just depends on the type. And so, like, because on top of that, like, I mean, if it wasn't for me experimenting after that with the fact that, oh, okay, I can sound like a cat, or like, can I sound like a dog? What really can I do with my voice? Safely, of course, because you never want to hurt your voice. But what can I do with my voice safely that I can experiment with? And luckily, I've taken enough both actual voice lessons, like in singing and stuff like that, that I knew where my limits were when it comes to hurting my voice and what it would feel like if I started hurting my voice, so I could stop doing that immediately. But I'm so glad I did, because then when Dino Girl Galco, those auditions came by, I was so excited because I'm obsessed with dinosaurs, and I like identify with Naoko like crazy because she's just me when I was a kid. And, I also got to voice the dinosaur part of her. And so that was like a fun, but again, it was me putting myself in this box, because I was like, casting directors are only casting me as children, therefore I will only be children. And being like, you know what? That's not true. The only reason why they're casting me as children is because I'm not trying these other characters. Did I even bother to put like creatures on my demo? Did I bother to put adults on my demo? Mm-hmm. No, so then that's my fault. It's my fault that I am being put in this box right now, and I need to fix that. So it's about like basically rearranging your whole thought process and being like, okay, don't get me wrong, children are definitely my bread and butter. And yeah, I might be like, that will probably be the main things that I book, but they're not the only things that I book anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of fun, because in my mastering characters coach, Ellie Ray, she, like in my last class, we spent like the first half hour just like howling and making snarling noises. Mm-hmm. She's like, see, you're all wolves, like you're all animals, you are. Yeah. And it's like, that's so much fun. It's like, yeah, you're right. Like human beings can make all these amazing noises. So it's like, why can't you be a dinosaur?
Well,
Why can't you
well,
be a cat? Like,
I get so many messages like on like my TikTok, and it'll be like, oh, I could never have that range, and I'm like, have you tried?
yeah.
Have you tried? Like,
Like,
just
you don't know.
like, it doesn't have to be exact, but have you really explored that part? And again, I will say this: please do it safely, because we don't want to injure anybody's vocal cords. The moment they're injured, they never come back. At least not to their full potential. So I mean, I always tell my students, like, take acting classes and also take singing lessons. Even if you can't keep a tune, it's not about actually learning how to sing. Although if you can, that's just an extra skill you can add to your resume.
Yeah. I mean, it works your vocal cords like crazy. So
right,
it's
and your
excellent
vocal
exercise.
cords are a muscle, and just like working out in real life, you want to be able to work out so you're working out your muscles, but also doing them safely so you don't pull something or tear something, anything like that. Your vocal cords are a muscle, so treat them like that.
Absolutely, like anything, it can get exercised through like that vocal training or through vocal direction. And I love absolutely that you so heavily endorse that experimentation, because that's it kind of gets back into the love of the art of voice acting. At least for me personally, a lot of my childhood I spent like imitating all of the cartoons I saw growing up. And absolutely it gets to the point where like if you like, you never sound good when you first try it out, and then you just keep hammering at it, and eventually you learn the muscles in your mouth well enough, safely of course, hopefully safely, that you find the sounds, and then you start repeating it over and over again, and it is a skill that you have to work. I'm very enthused.
I find that the other issue with like people afraid, like people are, at least the things that I've experienced with my students, because of course this is my experience, not everybody's experience, but with a lot of my students, their main concern into experimenting with that, and like try it this way, and they're like, but what if that's wrong? And I go, what do you mean, what if that's wrong? And they're like, what if that's not what the casting director wants? And I'm like, first of all, if the casting director knew what they wanted, they wouldn't bother doing auditions. They would just hire Steve Bloom again for the billionth time and be done with it. Why have auditions if they knew what they wanted? Like, no, it's literally that. Because, like, don't get me wrong. Yes, eventually, hopefully, you are going to be against the Steve Blooms and the Tara Strongs in the audition process. And yes, they might book it over you. But if they truly knew that what they wanted, they would have just hired them from the beginning, because they've already worked with them a billion times. They wouldn't bother. Auditions are expensive. Think about it this way: if you're getting an audition from a casting director, you can assume they're at least getting like 1,000, and that's on the low end. They're at least getting 1,000 auditions for that character. That means they then have to take the time to listen to those auditions afterwards. 1,000 auditions. 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
And you're gonna sit here and tell me that the casting director knows what they want to hear?
Like, I mean, who would put themselves through that if they knew what they were looking for?
If they knew what they wanted? Who, like, honestly, I've done casting once before, and I honestly, ooh, you casting directors, because I never want to do it again. And it's not that I hated, listening to people. It's just that it takes so much of your energy. I loved listening to the new people, and I loved listening to what they had to provide. But again, it just takes so much energy. And also, casting directors are on your side. They want you to be perfect, because that means you did their job for them.
It's
They
just
want
like
you to
any
be the role.
interview.
Exactly. They want you to be the role. They're on your side. And also, like, people also get into this point of view of being like, why audition if I am going against Steve Bloom? They're just going to pick Steve Bloom. No, they want you to beat out Steve Bloom. That's the thing. They've already worked with Steve Bloom so many times that, don't get me wrong, they will if they will, and they love working with Steve Bloom, obviously, or else they wouldn't work with him so much. But at the same time, they also love hearing people that are new. They love bringing bringing new people into the industry. I got told by somebody that they felt like the industry was really gatekeepy, and I'm like, I can understand from your point of view why it feels like that, but let me tell you from the casting director's perspective that is not the case. And that they are hoping that they get somebody new, a breath of fresh air, somebody with a different perspective. So when I tell my students to experiment, and I'm like, why not do it that way? Well, I'm afraid the casting director, like, it's not what the casting director wants. Well, the casting director doesn't know what they want, so why care? And they won't know what they want until you show them what they want. That's literally, they want you to show them what they want. Again,
Absolutely.
they want you to make their job easy. And I mean, there was actually just a tweet about this from another casting director this morning that said, oh my gosh, when we get somebody that does a line in a way that nobody else did it, it's like, why didn't we think it could even be done like that? And we now need this to happen. They want you to be different. They want you to experiment. They want you to show them something new. And that still somehow works. And this is proof, like, within classes that I even take as a student. I was in a class with Charlie Adler where they were doing a pair of sides that was like from this like gnome type character that wanted to be a wizard, and you'd think, okay, a gnome type character would have a certain sound. This guy came in and purposely put on a surfer dude accent on this character, and it was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life, and somehow it worked, and I never want to hear it done any other way ever again.
Oh my gosh, that's
I don't know how it
fantastic.
worked, but it did, and it was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I
like
would have
that.
never put that on a gnome who wants to be a wizard.
Right.
But it
I've
worked.
been told that, and I want to know kind of your opinion on this. A lot of times when it comes to auditions, is that your first take should be what you think they want to hear.
No,
and
disagree
your
with that
second take should be the
100,000%.
opposite. Okay.
Complete. In fact, I don't even, first of all, I usually, unless I have something that is completely different idea-wise, I only put one take. Most of the time, they only want one take. Even if they say you can put up to 3 takes, most of the time they only want one take. Because again, think about it this way. They have 1,000 to go through.
Yeah.
And again, I just told you that casting directors don't know what they want. So why would you put what you think they want when they don't even know what they want? They don't know what they want. So I always tell my students, and this is not just me and my opinion, this is the opinion of a lot of not only casting directors that I've worked with, but also a lot of my teachers have said this too, which is they don't know what they want. So get that thought out of your head. That thought of I'm gonna do what I think they want puts you in a box creatively, and you're actually going to not perform to your top performance. Because what you're then doing, and I highly suggest actually also getting this book called Directing Actors by Judith Weston, because she brings up a good point. It's called result-oriented acting, and it hinders the performance. If you think I'm gonna do what I think the casting director wants, that is result-oriented acting, and it's going to hinder your performance. Your only thought through any performance should be, what is the character thinking right now? Because if you're not thinking that, you're not in character. How can you turn in an audition if you're worried about something that the character is not worried about? You're not in character, therefore you're not performing at your peak performance. If the character is not worried about it in that moment, you shouldn't be worried about it either.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. That's incredibly knowledgeable. Thank you. That's kind of eye-opening.
Well, think about it.
Wow.
Our job is I know, right? But our job as actors is to act like people. And again, to relive these experiences as truthfully as possible. So if that's the case, how many characters do we have are worried about casting directors listening to them? 0. That's the answer. It's 0. So that's never going to be what your character is thinking, unless you happen to get literally an audition for a character that is auditioning. But I highly doubt that's going to happen because most of the time it's not the case. So if you're worried about what the casting director is thinking, well, then you're not in character. So how can you play that character?
Right.
There you go.
So you always want to be, you always want to
It's
be
called
in that.
result-oriented acting, and we want to stay away from that as much as possible. Also, again, the book is Directing Actors by Judith Weston. I only
thank you.
3 acting books. 3. There's millions out there. Only 3 of them I believe are good. Directing Actors by Judith Weston is number 1.
What are the other 2?
The other 2 is a book that Aaron Fitzgerald actually wrote a book for actors to start out with. I forgot what it's actually called. But if you just look it up, I only believe she only wrote 1. So it's by Aaron Fitzgerald, who is another actor. And that's another thing, is that hopefully you're reading acting books that are actually written by working actors and directors, because otherwise, what's the point? And then the other one is this, it's technically a monologue book, but it's more about monologues than it is about or scene study than it is about actually learning how to act. But when I was doing on camera and theater, and even now it still helps, it's basically a book that helps you pick out monologues from actual plays and actual shows, because technically there's a lot of monologue books out there that are done terribly, which is, I'm writing this monologue that doesn't actually come from a play or a show or anything like that, and you want to stay away from those monologue books. This one doesn't actually give you the monologue. It just tells you what plays, the synopsis of the play, the synopsis of the character, and where the monologue starts. So that way you can then go buy that play. But it was super helpful in me getting monologues, and also me getting scenes to work on with partners in acting classes that actually required you to find your own monologues and scenes.
Thank you very much. I think that book might just be called Becoming a Voice Actor.
No, because it's not.
Google,
it's not
you
a
have
voice
failed
acting
me.
One. I think I did find it once on Amazon, because I bought the book a billion years ago and I haven't touched it in a while. But
Google is not doing its job today.
nah, it tends to not. But I'll find it later and email it to you guys.
Thank you.
Much obliged. So sort of on the topic of getting into that character and really understanding who you want to act and how you want to act it, where do you enter that big old pool when you do your auditions personally?
So the first thing is just reading through the script initially, and being able to figure out the who, what, when, where, why, answering those questions. Who being who or not, and I not only who you're talking to, but what's more important, the relationship you have with that person. And I bring this up in class all the time. I want to be able to tell if you like or dislike that person within 2 seconds. I should and also if you bring up somebody else's name, I should also be able to tell if you like or dislike that person within 2 seconds. Because we as human beings, we don't realize that we do this until we actually start studying acting, and or if you're also a behavioral psychologist, you'll understand this as well. But we do this subconsciously, where we like to think we treat people equally. We don't. We absolutely do not. It's a subconscious thing. But we have, and the reason why is because we have a different relationship with each person in our life. We even treat like our mother, like our parents differently based off of the relationships that we have with each of those people. We treat each one of our friends differently. I have a different relationship with each one of my friends. I have different experiences with each one of them. Therefore, I treat them all differently based off of those experiences. And I bring this up to my students all the time. My number one question to my students is, this moment just happened. How many times have they done that to you? The answer is usually a billion. The answer usually is, this is the billionth time and you're fed up. And I want to hear that frustration of this being the billionth time that they have screwed this up. And then also I want to hear in your voice the frustration that you trusted that they wouldn't do it, even though they've been doing it for the billionth time. I want to hear both of those things. And again, that has to do with relationship and experiences you have with those people. And then you have the what, which is like, what's your objective? And understanding that like in every single scene you want something. And it could even be as simple as I want them to leave. And keeping it simple, mind you. The simpler the better. If you try to make it more I think a lot of people, when they first learn about like the who, what, when, where, why, and how to break down a script, they want to make it complicated because they want to seem like super artistic. And I'm like, why? Why do that? First of all, I'm dumb, and I, for some reason, seem autistic, and I or artistic, not autistic. I am autistic. Wow. And I seem artistic, but I promise you, if I were to break down this script with you, you would see all my answers are really simple and stupid. But yeah, I'm seen as, oh my God, that was such an interesting take. It wasn't. It's kind of like the same thing as I always bring up my example is always Romeo and Juliet, and I'm like, what do you think Romeo's like pure objective is throughout the whole entire thing? He just wants to have sex with her. That's it. Oh, you're gonna tell me that they're in love? He met her 3 days ago. That's love? Yeah. Seriously. Also, 3 days ago, he was originally dating her cousin Rosalind.
Like, what is this, a Disney movie? What's going on here?
Yeah, no, you can't sit there and tell me that they're actually in love. He just wants to have sex with her. That's it. Yeah. He's just confusing it with love. But you as the actor know that no, he just wants sex with her. Also, if we get into the original into the original Romeo and Juliet, he is 34 and she is 14.
Yep.
So you're gonna sit there and tell me he's in love with a 14-year-old? And then you have the option of like, because you have people that really didn't understand like why are these? Oh, it's because his family is low class. No, it's because he's 34 years old and she's 14. I'd be upset too. Get away from my daughter.
Oh, man, Corina calling out Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, I absolutely will, and I do all the time. Well, because I like, don't get me wrong, I like studying Shakespeare is great, but I hate when people study Shakespeare wrong. Because in the first, like, people are like, oh my gosh, Romeo and Juliet is such a romantic. No, it is not a romantic story. In the first few sentences, it tells you exactly the story it is. In the first few sentences, it says literally line, "This is a tragedy." Nowhere. Like the narrator tells you in the beginning of the show, this is a tragedy. And you think it's romantic? That's disgusting. So I'm like, you literally have it written out for you what this is about, and yet you still are wrong. Like, how? Okay.
Some people love a good tragedy. Maybe that's their kink.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a good tragedy, but I don't sit there and say that it's about love.
Relationship goals, you guys. I feel like we just need a whole separate segment where Corina can just rant about Romeo and Juliet.
I would go on for hours.
I'd believe that.
But again, it's a simple want. It's a simple thing. We also tend to humans are very conceited. We tend to think that we are super smart and we're not that complicated. We're really not. We like to think we are, and don't get me wrong, we can get into situations where our character wants something but doesn't truly know it, and that's when things can get a little bit more confusing. But our character's want is still very simple, usually. And so then we get into that, and then you go to like who, what, where is not just where you are, but also your relationship to where you are. And I think that's what people also forget either. Just like we treat every single different person in our life differently, we treat every different space in our life differently. We feel much different when we're at our own home in our own room than we do in a library or at Disneyland or at some other person's house. I know that in my own home, I will literally throw garbage on the ground because it's my own house and I can do whatever I want with it. But if I'm in somebody else's home, it could be the dirtiest home on the planet and I will still ask, where's the trash can? Because that's not my place. It is not my place to make it dirtier. It's not mine.
Right.
I love that because it's like, that wrapper's been sitting there for 3 days. But it's on my desk. It's not inconvenience anyone. So
It's not inconveniencing anyone
but
else
I wouldn't leave that on somebody else's desk.
Right,
like-
that's rude. How dare you?
Oh my
You know?
gosh.
And so also understanding that we do have we have relationships with inanimate objects even. And I sometimes even conclude that and put that in the who, what, when, where, why on the who part, because even I mean, like, I bring this up a lot. I have a toy that I was given by my sister when she went to Thailand. That toy is probably worth 50 cents. My computer is worth $2,000. What thing am I going to be more upset about if some stranger came in and stole? I would be much more upset about the 50-cent present that my sister gave me one time
You
for
attach sentiment to
Christmas
things
because
like
of the
that.
sentiment behind it.
Yeah.
But it's just an inanimate object, but it's also the relationship behind it and the meaning that I put behind it. But to anybody else, it's garbage.
Yeah. That's one of the things
Um,
that we practice is giving voices and characters to inanimate objects,
Mm-hmm.
which is a really fun exercise. And it's like, look at this pair of scissors. What would it sound like? What's its personality? What's its name?
Which, by
It's
the
such an
way, that
interesting
actually
practice.
does get asked in auditions sometimes. It's really
Yeah.
weird. I got
I mean, you
asked-
voiced an ice cream cone, so
I did. I voiced an ice cream cone. So there you go. But there was also, I didn't get the job, but it was for a commercial. And I got asked first was, be a mouse. Like, first I did it. And then they were like, okay, and now I want you to voice this like if you were a mouse. And I'm like, oh, is this a mouse? And they were like, we don't know. I was like, okay, great. So I'm
They don't know
gonna
what
try
they
and
want.
voice it like it's a mouse. And the next thing they were told me, and this one was even weirder because they said, okay, can you do it again, but do it like you're voicing a dryer sheet. What? Great.
how do you do that?
Exactly. You better be ready.
I need to go buy dryer sheets.
Oh my god.
That is
But
crazy.
that's totally a thing. But yeah,
Mhm.
who, what, where, when, and when is probably like the most confusing one just because of like how it's worded. So when is not necessarily the time of day, but it's when does this happen within the script, which basically can be boiled down to what are you reacting to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Acting is reacting.
Acting is reacting, and again, we forget this all the time because especially in voice acting, you're usually alone.
Mhm.
So you usually forget that you're actually talking to somebody else.
Yeah.
And especially in auditions, they don't get usually most of the time they do not give you what you are reacting to. Most of the time they just give you your words and your words alone. They do not include the words of the other characters in the script at all. And so you have to, and I get this a lot too, where I'm like, okay, great. So when they don't do that, make it up. But what if I'm wrong? Okay. They don't care if you're wrong. If they cared if you were wrong, they would have gave you the answer, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Like they literally would have given you the entire scene if they cared if you were gonna get it wrong.
Mhm.
That's literally the answer. And again, they just want to make sure that you're smart and that you'll make choices. I always tell my students that there's many different right answers and there's not too many wrong answers. But definitely always what's going to be a wrong answer is not making any choice at all. Making no choice at all will always be the wrong and the worst answer. Period. Because again,
Definitely.
if you're worried about what a casting director wants, you're already putting yourself in a box. So you might put yourself in a position where you would not take a risk that would be beneficial. And show that you're different and creative because you're like, but I don't know if the casting director would like that. Well, who cares? Start with who cares first and then move on. And then make your choice because not making any choice at all because you're worried about something that you don't even know what they care about at all. Why worry about something that you can't control? Don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. Bringing it all the way back to the don't
make
let other
a
stuff
choice. So
distract
I
you.
always, and
Yeah.
also not only that, half the time it's pretty obvious what it is you're reacting to anyway. So like one of the scenes that we work on in my class is one of the responses is where question mark, oh you silly man, you only know you're only here because you know where she is. So I'm like, what are you reacting to? And they're like and I'm like, because this is like a superhero type situation where you're playing the bad guy, and that's the bad guy saying, "Where? Oh, you silly man, you're only here because you know where she is." And I'm like, "What are you reacting to?" Okay, imagine this: the hero comes in, grabs you by the collar, and says, "Where is she?" That's what you're reacting to. Oh, it's that simple. Yep, it's that simple. And funny enough, with that script specifically, I know it's from a video game, and I'd never played that video game, and one of my students had. And when I went through breaking down the script, they were like, "Wait, you said you'd never played this before." And I was like, "Nope." And they were like, "Then how did you get everything correct?" Because I'm really good at breaking down scripts and also just basing it off my gut. My gut,
I'm
your
just
gut
a really
instinct,
good actor, you guys.
well, the gut instinct is usually right, and your gut instinct is usually right. The problem is that when you're beginning in acting, you're so worried about other things you shouldn't be worried about, like getting it right.
Yeah.
First of all, there is no right answer. So, or there's many right answers, and there's no just one way of doing it. But also, just based off of the context clues, it's about keeping it simple and not thinking that it has to be something crazy and intricate and stuff like that. It's really simple. And keeping it simple will also help you understand it when you're performing it. And then so who, what, when, where, and then why, of course, is why do you want what you want? Why do you want your objective and stuff? So basically, the first thing that goes through my mind is all of those answers. And I know I just took like a good 20 minutes explaining all of it, but for me, again, you get to the point in your acting career, and it used to take me forever to do it, but now I do it instantly. I'm able to answer all of those questions instantly. And again, that comes with practice. That just comes with doing that over and over again over every single script that I've had over the years. Especially in voice acting, and especially in video game voice acting, where you're not given the script in advance, so you have to do it instantly. You have to be able to answer all of those questions instantly when you're in the booth. So you better start practicing it now. And then, usually basing it off of, okay, first instinct is correct, so I start recording immediately. I do not practice like it out loud. I start recording my practice immediately, because your practice might be the best one. And if that's the best one, you definitely are gonna hope you had it recorded.
Definitely.
And again, I do record like a few. Like I'll record anywhere from 3 to 5 takes, but usually, unless my takes are completely different and show 2 different sides that are wildly different, I usually only turn in one.
Yeah, I really like that's fantastic advice, because like I myself have definitely experienced the doing it over and over again to the point where I feel like I'm trying too hard. And it's like, I should just gone like, and then I'm like, okay, delete everything. I'm gonna restart, and whatever comes out of my mouth the first time, I just need to leave that one alone and keep that one, because sometimes it feels like if you're trying too hard to sound exactly like perfect,
again, result-oriented
you're gonna have
acting.
a hard time. Yeah, exactly.
It's bad. Result-oriented acting is bad.
Yeah.
and it will trip you up. And like, yeah, I've had moments too where I've looked at a script and I've just felt like, God, I'm gonna take like a good 30-minute break from this, and then when I come back, my first take is what I'm turning in. And I will go and I will play video games, and I'll put a timer on so that way I can completely ignore it for 30 minutes. And usually by the time I go back to it, I'm like, I get it now, because I shut off my brain for like a good 30 minutes. And now my brain's not like crazy about it anymore. And it's like, oh, it's this. Oh my God, that was so simple. Why did I try to make it way more complicated than it had to be?
Yeah. And it just boils down to that same principle of like, when, humans, we like things simple, and we can be super, super complicated, but that just messes us up. So to keep it simple. Exactly.
And mind you, your character can make it complicated, but it's usually because of a simple problem.
Yeah.
Like it's really funny because like I'm autistic, so anytime that I like, especially with neurotypical problems, I'm like, oh my God, like watching Friends with me. is probably the worst because the whole time I'm like, you know, they could fix this if they just did this.
They just talk to each other.
Why
maybe.
did they not just do that? Well, you don't understand because Ross doesn't want to come out with his feelings because he's worried that Rachel doesn't like him back. Yeah, if he's worried about that, then he can realize that, oh, Rachel doesn't like him back and he can move on. What's the problem? Like, it's literally that simple. I don't understand this show. I hated Friends, by the way. I watched all of Friends, and the entire time I was like, this just seems like rich white people problems. I'm sorry. I can't.
Oh gosh.
Oh my goodness. Me and my sister are actually the exact same way. We're terrible. We do the same thing where we'll be watching something and we're just clowning on the cast the whole time. It's like, you know, this is a really simple problem if you just like fixed it. If you just would be
clowning on the cast, but just the writing.
Yeah, it's just writing, but
This is why I have trouble with horror movies because it's like don't do that. Why are you doing that?
Why would you do that?
yeah,
Why would
would
you go
ever
in the
walk
house?
into the basement?
What are you doing?
This is why, like, first of all, I get scared by anything, but honestly, in every horror movie where they actively walk into the place they shouldn't, I'm like, well, you deserve to die now. I don't even care. I don't care. Walk in there, but see what happens. You effed around and found out, didn't you?
So,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, looks like you deserved it, really. I'm just saying.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
little-
true. Like,
Little George
I see
walking
no
into
lies
that.
here.
Yeah. What from like it where his like little boat fell into the sewer? It was like, he
Yeah, the
shouldn't
kid
reach for you,
followed it like a
little-
dummy.
Yeah. It was like,
Sorry,
whose
but I've
fault is
learned
that
not
really?
to reach my hand into dark places. That's
Why
a
would
bad
you reach
idea.
your hand into a sewer?
No, that's so unsanitary. Just don't. Just don't.
Gross.
Oh my goodness.
I'm so mean.
I mean, you're just spitting facts here. There's no
Yeah, I don't
problem
think-
with that.
I don't think anyone would
Like-
disagree with us, really. It's the truth.
Oh my gosh. Wow. No, I mean, this is like, boy, no, you can really tell that you're an instructor too, that you have your own classes and everything that you teach because
Mhm.
like, this is incredibly, there's so much information I'm
Well,
pulling
and
in right
I
now.
just really
Thank
love
you.
teaching.
Yeah.
I love teaching so much, especially because like when I was learning. Now, mind you, I always say it took me 10 years to finally truly understand the who, what, when, where, why, and like what those actually meant. And that's 10 years of training. Mind you, I was already a working actor
Yeah.
through all that training, and I still do training even now, regardless, because your training never stops as an actor. You never know when something new is gonna happen, and usually the best place to experiment is in a class. Because there's no casting director there, and even if the casting director, let's say a casting director is doing the class, that's still the place to experiment in front of them. Like I always find it funny when people take classes with casting directors, they're like, I really want to impress them. I'm like, nope. You're gonna come off super cringe if you do that, my dude, because I've impressed every single casting director I've done a class with, and it's because I went in there and I was like, my job is to not do that. My job in a class is to experiment and see what works.
Yeah.
And if you do that in front of a casting director, especially in their classes, they're gonna be like, oh, what else? What else can come out of your crazy mind?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yes, what else can come out of your crazy, you know? It's the same thing, like, as I said, Charlie Adler is one of my mentors, and he's a director, and he casts. And if you come in there trying to impress him, he'll immediately notice, and he'll immediately bring you down. Not to the point where you're crying or anything, but just being like, that's not what you're here for. You're here to learn. So if you're here to learn, I want you to experiment here. I want you, don't try to show me how great you are. And the minute that you let that go, you're actually do impress people, because again, you're not doing result-oriented acting. Again, it's that idea of, I'm gonna do this, and that's result-oriented acting, and it harms you every single time.
Yeah, so it sounds like you really take to heart that whole idea of acting very intuitively and very naturally. Is that something that you came into the acting world with, this
No.
sort of spirit of? No?
Oh, so remember when I went into acting, I was 5 years old. My job was to be the center of attention and nothing else. I'm gonna be completely honest. My intention becoming an actor, well, first off, it was because I wanted to be Jim Carrey, and then my parents told me, you can't be Jim Carrey. You can't just turn into another person. And I said, well, then you guys have been lying to me because you guys said I could grow up to be whatever I wanted to be, and I want to be Jim Carrey. And they were like, well, we meant like job-wise, so you can be an actor like Jim Carrey. And I go, okay, well, I guess that's okay. I guess that'll do.
I'll settle.
But my goal as an actor when I first got into it when I was 5 was I want to be the main character. I want to be the center of attention. I want everybody to have the eyes on me. Remember, I am also the middle child, so this is just par for the course.
Oh,
yeah. Oh no. Dude,
there
I
it is.
fit that stereotype to the T. And of course, I've now rejected that completely. Because now I understand, and especially this comes from an improv background too, and I'm so glad that I got into improv. And rest in peace, Gary Austin, but he was my coach, and he also like invented the Groundlings. And I also took classes at the Groundlings on top of working with Gary. But the goal even there is like the number one thing that he'll call you out on is don't try to be funny. It's not funny anymore the minute you try. And that was something that I had to work on because, again, I wanted to be the center of attention. I wanted to be the funniest person on stage. But then he really also, him and Richard Leadley both broke me down. Again, not in a way where I was like, you're breaking me. No, it was a way of like being, like shaking me basically and being like, this isn't how it's done. And I'm so glad that they did because it definitely was an uphill battle for me. And especially because I think like, you know, I am autistic, so it does take me sometimes to get things a little bit longer than other people. But I'm so glad that they were patient with me and still worked with me enough to the point where it finally clicked one day in my improv class with Gary, where I did a whole scene and I didn't speak a word. I did a whole scene and I didn't say a single word in that scene because it finally clicked. Don't say anything until you feel like you should. And I didn't have to, because now mind you, it's not like I didn't respond. I responded, but I responded with looks and I responded with body language. But the other person in my scene was the one talking the entire time. And all I did was react, and I didn't feel like I needed to react in actual words. And Gary said that I have never been funnier. Like, he was like, I know you weren't even talking the entire time, and you were the funniest person on stage, and I couldn't keep my eyes off of you. And it's because I wasn't trying to be the center of attention for once. I wasn't trying to be funny. I wasn't trying to be the center of attention. What I did, though, was I was in the moment. The only thing I paid attention to was my scene partner and reacting honestly to everything that was going on. And I didn't speak because I didn't feel like I had to. So I didn't. And again, he said it was like one of my best performances. And I was 16 at the time. And funny enough, shortly after that, I booked The Pillow Man, where I played a character that doesn't have any actual lines either.
Oh my gosh.
And so it worked. And then, like, there was another play. I was in the play Balm in Gilead, where I was a character. She only has, like, 4 lines in the whole thing, but she is on stage the entire time. And the number one, now, mind you, not the main character, clearly, 4 lines. And also my character, the whole show of Balm in Gilead is a lot about prostitution and drug use and stuff like that. And my character is high the entire time off of heroin, in the corner of this cafe. That's my role. And then I speak 4 times where I talk to my drug dealer about getting more drugs. And that's the entire role. And then I come back on stage later high again. And the number one compliment I got was, I couldn't take my eyes off of you when you were in that corner the entire time. And all I'm doing is there, no lines, acting like I am high off my butt. You know? and again, it's because acting also, you know, again, I came at it with the wanting of being the center of attention and being the funny one and being that. And it wasn't until I let go of that I then became a good actor. And again, that even process of letting it go, I was 16 at the time where I started realizing it. And I was just starting to realize it. And that's a 10-year process. When I started when I was 5, and then I started realizing it when I was 16. Oh my God, okay. Oh, shoot. And another thing that another teacher told me, especially in improv, your job is not to make yourself look good, it's to make the other person look good. So make them look good. And that's super true. If you're concentrating on being the center of attention and being the funny one, first of all, it's gonna come off as trying too hard. And I'm sorry, when have we ever been funny when we were trying too hard to be funny? Never. The answer is
people
never.
can tell.
Exactly.
I learned that in improv too. Is the especially when you're doing improv with other people, is that like just like you said, like you have to rely on your scene partner to give you something to react to. And if you can't provide something to your scene partner, it's just not going to work.
Well, and I think
So
also
it's
we concentrate so much on like, what can I say to be funny versus what can I say to help this person?
Yeah, like
Or
I need to say something that they can bounce
this
off of,
scene
basically.
move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it ends up being funny because we weren't trying to.
Yeah, it comes off naturally, and that's more funny than watching people
Try to
perform in a non-genuine way. You want to watch people be genuine.
No, I'm obsessed with the show The Office, and it's constantly playing in my house at all times. And one of the things that I do bring up is like Michael Scott one night goes to improv class. And he does the same thing every time, which he plays Michael Scarn, which is his made-up OC that he made, and he shoots everybody on stage and stuff like that. And I'm like, yes, him. Michael Scott is the epitome of trying too hard to be funny. That's it.
It's like you walk into improv class and you see a picture of him on the wall, and it's just underneath it says,
Don't
"No,
don't do that."
Unless the character calls for that, no.
But that's the great part is that Michael Scott is the one character where I'm like, see, his character actually called for him to be like that, though.
Yeah.
And that's why it is funny, because he is supposed to be that awkward. Yeah.
That's great. Gosh, wow. Okay, so kind of somewhat changing the topic a little bit, because I have a question I'm really curious about. As far as like the different accents that you have listed and the different languages you have listed on your resume, I'm really curious. Are you still learning Spanish? How's that going?
I don't know how. That's definitely not on my resume that I'm learning Spanish. I don't think
I think it's on your Instagram, maybe.
Oh yeah, it might have been on my Instagram that I was learning Spanish at the time. I am learning Spanish currently on Duolingo at the moment, but I do want to take an actual class, and the reason why is because my boyfriend is Latino, and his family. I love his family, and his family is really important to me. And I would like to speak to his grandparents in their native language. Now they do know English. That's not a problem. But again, it's more of the principle of the thing. I also just like learning other languages is so eye-opening with how language works, and I think it's a very interesting topic. And how a language even evolves too. But I am trying to learn Spanish. I'm still really bad at it.
I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere.
Exactly. And I'll get better eventually.
Yeah, and I think it's like that's wonderful, because it's like a lot of people are like, I want to learn this because it will improve, like as far as like voice acting goes. Like, I want to learn these languages because I want to do that. But I'd like to hear like, well, I want to speak with people I care about too.
Well, and here's the thing, a lot of people that get into voice acting, they immediately go into, I want to learn Japanese. Just so you know, learning Japanese does not help you in dubbing.
Yeah,
whatsoever. And I know that because Kaylee Mills, who actually does know Japanese fluently, can actually attest that it does not help with dubbing in English. The only thing it will really help is like if you become a translator for dubbing purposes, then yeah, obviously that would help you in your job. Or if you are a writer, if you write scripts for dubbing, then yes, it might be able to help you, because you can even like look at the translation and be like, that seems a little bit off to me. I think it translates better like this, because I know American Sign Language pretty fluently, and I actually worked as a sign language interpreter, so I understand like translation is also very can be like there's things that can be translated in multiple different ways but still have the same meaning, and so yeah, that can be helpful if you're doing that part of the job. But for the actual voice acting part of it, it doesn't help at all. And if you're gonna think there and be like, well, what if I want to be what if I'm an American that wants to be a voice actor in Japan? It's still not gonna help you, because they won't hire you. And I hate to say this,
Yep.
but it's true. In Japan, they're gonna have to hire Japanese people that actually use there are specific Japanese dubbing schools that those voice actors go to for anime to become a seiyuu, and it's a completely different process. And I'm sorry, but they don't hire any outsiders for that. It's the same thing as like they actually tell you this when you first get into animation school, or as well, because I have a friend who went to animation school.
Yeah, I studied animation for a while.
Yeah, if you wanted to do anime, hate to tell ya, you're not going to, because you didn't be born and grew up in Japan. That's literally it. Now, of course, you can make Japanese inspired cartoons out here in the West, like they did with Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
That's a completely American cartoon, very heavily inspired by anime, which you can absolutely do. And there's tons of cartoons that are like that as well, so you can absolutely do that.
Yeah,
plenty of prime examples for sure.
Yeah. So, man, Corina, I have to say, you're really well sort of traveled with all these different skill sets you've got. You've got Spanish cooking in the background. We also have to know you've done like aerial acrobatics, and you got like rock climbing going on here. I just always doing a lot of stuff though.
Here's the thing. First of all, being a non-camera actor, and like being an actor in general, having as many skills as possible is really a benefit for anybody that happens to be casting for that thing. I have been cast because I have rock climbing skills, because you needed to know how to rappel, and in rock climbing you have to learn how to rappel. Especially with mocap video games right now, having those physical skills is really important. So I mean, I asked my mocap teacher day one, Richard Dorton, he's amazing, mocap vaults, shout out. Highly suggested classes. But I was like, is my aerial work gonna work in my favor? And he goes, you do aerial? Please show me everything of that. Send me pictures. I want that. I need that. So yeah. But also, and this comes from Stephanie Shea herself, you need to have a life to be able to act. Again, our job as actors is to reenact life of people honestly. So if you don't have a life outside of acting, how can you recreate that life? You know, there are people that like live, breathe, and eat acting, and yeah, I live, breathe, and eat acting too, but I also need a break. And everybody needs a break, and you need to have experiences, so that way you can use those experiences in real life to even help you in those moments.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that's incredibly important. That reminds me of I have a friend in my voice acting business class, who took an acting class. I think it was either in college or high school, but she said it was like one of her favorite classes, because a way for them to kind of experience how to do like Foley sounds was the teacher just set up an obstacle course in their gym, and they had to run around and make noises while you're like jumping over chairs and climbing under things, like make noises so that you know what you sound like when you do that.
No, that's super important. I tell that to my students too. I'm like, don't get me wrong. You don't have to be any specific size for voice acting. You can be like, this is not like a body shaming thing, but I want you all to go to the gym and I want you all to do your best. Like, you don't have to run super fast, but jog. Okay, now start breathe. Like, listen to your breath. How do you sound when you jog? Now start talking while you jog. How do you sound when you're jogging while you're talking? Because you're gonna have to recreate that when you're not jogging, because on the microphone, you can't make, I'm like, you can move as much as you want around the microphone as long as it doesn't make sound, which means you can't actually run. But if your character is running, you need to recreate that and make it sound believable. And that's the same thing with like, now I'm like, don't go out there and get yourself in a fight. But if your character is fighting, do you know how you sound when you get punched in the face? Probably, hopefully not. Hopefully you don't know what that sounds like, but go to the gym, and what I want you to do is start throwing your own body around safely, of course, and start realizing, okay, if I get hit in the face, that means like if it's from the right to the left, that means my head is going right to left really fast. So what type of noise am I making if I really quickly whip my head that way? That's probably what it would sound like if I got punched in the face. And you need to know that on the fly, because there's literally like, especially in video games again, where they will be like, okay, you're playing a zombie, and at this point you are getting, you first get thrown a Molotov cocktail on you, and then somebody comes at you with a chainsaw and slices you vertically in half.
What does it sound like when you get cut in half by a chainsaw?
Yeah, what does it sound like when you get cut in half? Have you ever had that happen to you before? And then on top of it, okay, same thing, except now you're getting cut horizontally. And you have to make those two things sound different. And then you have to think, okay, if I'm getting cut vertically, is it from the top or the bottom? Because those are two different sounds as well. Okay, now I know if it's from the top, it's gonna hit my brain first, and then it's gonna hit my mouth. And I need to remember that, so that way the sound, I can know exactly what point. Okay, at this point it's hitting my mouth, now it's gonna sound more gurgly and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm out. Because at that time, my brain is just gone. Right? And then if I'm getting horizontally slashed, chainsawed in half, okay, they're not hitting my lungs, so I can actually scream for quite a while after that point, and I'm probably still technically alive because my brain is intact, and I'm bleeding out. Okay, so at what point do I bleed out entirely? You need to know all of those things, so that way when they ask you to do them in the booth, you can recreate that and think about it that way.
And not like anyone's getting chainsawed in half at the gym, but throwing your body around.
Throw your own body around
Exactly.
safely, of course.
I mean, I don't know what kind of gym you go to, Edmund. I usually fight other people with chainsaws when I go to the gym.
Well, then, clearly I need to change my gym subscription because I want that one.
On the regular, just living my life. I'll just like choke slam my siblings so that they get the knowledge of what it's like to throw their body.
Yeah, let me go fight my brother right now.
But no, yeah, it's really fun to get into those situations because bringing it back into the booth is really exciting to pretend that you're running, and it's part of the act. It's part of the arts of it all.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're thinking too hard about it, it's not going to sound right. So it's like you shouldn't think
That's
about.
why you want to think about that outside of the booth first and be like, okay, what would it sound like if this happened? So that way, when you're in the booth and somebody says you get hit in the face, somebody uppercuts you in the face. Ugh, done, got it, cool. Don't have to think about it. Great, moving on.
Definitely, yeah.
Getting the whole reaction part to heart, and just being able to just snap into it and know what your body sounds, what your body do, really.
Yeah, because everybody's body is different and reacts differently to different physical things. Yeah.
And going back to directors not knowing what they want, that's why I believe that there's a space in the industry for everyone, is because
100%.
Yeah, the noises your body can make could be just perfect for what we're trying to achieve.
It's why it really makes me laugh when somebody is like, yeah, but I don't have an interesting voice. Okay, so here's the thing. Neither do a lot of people, really. First of all, have you tried? But second of all, like, I don't know if you've ever listened to commercials. Those are just normal people talking, and commercials make the most money. So why not get into commercials? And I wish I had like, don't get me wrong, I have done commercials, but I definitely don't book commercials as often as other people because my voice is super specific. You know?
Yeah.
So and it's funny because, like, yeah, people constantly think, oh, to be a voice actor I need to have a specific voice quality or anything like that, and I'm like, no, not really, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my business teacher mentioned that. He's like, my business teacher, John Wang, he was like, let me tell you something. Your voice is not unique.
No.
It's basically like, no, like, one of the questions was, as a voice actor, what are you trying to sell? And a lot of people answered, oh, you're selling your voice. And he's like, no, you're selling you. You are the one that you're selling.
The whole package.
Yeah, not your voice, because your voice could sound like, 20 other people or, 100 other people. However,
you know how many times I get compared to Tara Strong? In fact, I've gone up against her in plenty of auditions, and I know that because she beat me out a couple of times.
Man.
Well, I don't blame them. She's great. Yeah, like, it is again, I literally got a job for 2 different, and for Tatsumaki, because I sounded exactly like Maria of Harrington. So yeah, your voice, not that interesting. My voice, really not that interesting, because I literally got a voice matching somebody else because we sound exactly alike. So therefore, yeah, voices, no, those are not unique, but the whole person, that's unique.
Absolutely. It's like, if the person casting, that's why a couple of my teachers have really stressed on the whole slate your audition if they don't ask, if they say, unless they say otherwise, you should slate, because at that point that gives you an opportunity to introduce your person to them.
And also, don't do it in character voice.
Yeah, it's like, they want to hear your voice.
They want to hear your voice. And then, because also, I mean, now casting directors do have a difference of opinion on this, but I find that most of them don't want the slate in a character voice. And also, especially Charlie Adler being my mentor again, he wants to hear the crazy things you can do with your voice. So if you start off really low and then all of a sudden can do something super high pitched, he can be like, oh my, what? You can do that? Yeah, that's awesome. He wants to hear that difference. And most of them do, but again, you're not selling a voice, you're selling yourself. So yeah, when you're first introducing yourself, you're saying Corina Boettger, like, if I'm slating Corina Boettger, this character. I'm selling me. That's my name. I'm telling, and then when we get to the character, I can be in character voice and whatnot, or whatever I feel like the character sounds like, But and also I also see, like, hey, like, question, do you slate or not? And I always slate unless they tell me not to, because again, and this has happened before, where Charlie was actually telling a story that he was casting, and the person forgot to put their name in the file name, and then they didn't slate, and they wanted to cast that person.
No.
And they had no way of contacting them because they didn't know who it was, and they didn't even put, like, they didn't put the agent name, they just put the character name, and then they didn't slate.
Oh, jeez.
So unless I am told otherwise, I always slate just in case. Because I'm terrified that that's going to happen. And yeah, they wanted to hire that person, but they couldn't find him, and they couldn't remember who it was sent by. Hello, bird.
Zulu.
Zulu came to say hi.
Hi, beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh man, none of our listeners can see this, but we've been
Well, she
blessed.
just made a noise, so they can hear her.
We've been blessed this day.
Oh. Sorry.
No, don't apologize.
Rip headphone users.
No.
She's high pitched.
In fact, do it again. Like.
Yeah? You making funny noises?
This is the voice actor we really wanted to audition to. No.
Honestly, I told MiHoYo that if they ever introduce parrots, that they better have me just record Zulu for a few hours and then use all of that in the game.
Yeah, I mean, if Marissa Lenti can have her cat like be a voice actor, You can have your bird be a voice actor. Like.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
Oh, Zulu agrees. Absolutely.
Zulu knows how famous they can be.
Oh, but I mean they have a Twitter.
They do have a
Yeah,
Twitter.
I know. I follow
Yeah.
it.
Maybe-
So there you go. Because she's my social media manager now. Is that right? You're my social media manager.
What an esteemed bird. Another question I have about I know that you have mentioned in previous interviews before that you're big on just like don't get attached, but it's also that can be really hard sometimes.
It
And I'm
is.
wondering, I guess, if
I've
there
even
are
failed
any,
at it before.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, and I mean this is kind of specific for I'm a huge fan of Genshin Impact, of course. And you seem to really love voicing Paimon. They're just a fantastic character. I'm wondering, if Paimon or other characters you voice, if you still, are still very like super attached to them, or if you've kind of
I
mean,
I'm attached to them now that I've voiced them for so long,
Mhm.
especially Paimon, because I've been with Paimon for 3 years now.
Yeah, it's a long
That's
time.
a long time to be with a character, especially because usually in a video game you record for a few months and then you're done.
Yeah.
But yeah, Paimon I'm attached to now. I definitely wasn't in the audition process because I had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
Which is the best way to deal with it. But there have been like a few times where I was attached and I knew I shouldn't have been. And because again, I fail at that too. I totally do.
Yeah. So hard sometimes.
And it really is hard. So it's definitely not an easy thing. But for Sailor Moon, I wasn't necessarily attached to a specific character. I just wanted to be involved. I flat out, I remember that email too because I'm really close with the studio that does Sailor Moon, Studiopolis. I work with them tons of times, so I was sending it directly into a person that I work with regularly. So I remember sending in that audition and being like, hey, thanks for the audition. Just so you know, I am willing to be anything on this project. I will come in for Walla for this project. And that was at a time where I really didn't do Walla anymore just because I didn't have time for it. But I was like, I just want to be a part of this project. Heck, I don't even have to be a voice actor. Make me an assistant for like a few days on the project. I don't care. I just want to be on the project.
I just want to be on Sailor Moon.
And then
please.
I thought I didn't get it because I didn't hear anything for 3 months.
Oh,
You know?
yeah.
And I was like, dang it, that was my fault. I shouldn't have got attached. And then of course I get an email like later on that says I'm in it. But you know, it is an issue. And again, it is hard because I still fail at it to this day. There is one that I didn't get. It's one that I auditioned for originally. They hired somebody, so I originally wasn't really attached to it. I was just excited that I got it because it was for, and this has been announced, but it was for Goslin for DuckTales, which of course is not me, because we all know that it's the actress who plays Rosaria in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. She's amazing, and I'm glad she got it. I don't have any hard feelings whatsoever. But I did get attached to that character because I originally auditioned. I didn't hear anything, and I really originally was not attached to it because I was like, "What? It's cool that I got the audition. Oh my god, I'm auditioning for Disney, and DuckTales is so cool." But whatever. And then a year later, they go through the audition process again because apparently something happened where they weren't really going, like whoever they originally hired, they didn't mesh with or whatever, or they thought they were taking the character into a different direction, which does happen too. And so they were doing auditions again. So I said, I emailed my agent back and I was like, I have auditioned for this character before. Is this a callback? And she was like, no, they are re-auditioning everybody because they're restarting from the start. And I was like, okay, awesome. I auditioned for the character again. And then I got the callback. And I was like, I really want this. I really want this.
Like, man, you teased me the first time, and
I
I'm doing
really
this again.
want this.
Come
So
on.
I go in for the callback, and I ended up not getting it. But I kicked myself to this day that I did get attached because I shouldn't have. So you know, it's definitely a constant. What? Yes, I get attached to you too. I'm so attached to you, but I have you, so that's fine. But because again, and another character. Now this one I was lucky that I did end up getting, but with the audition process with Tatsumaki, I also got attached to Tatsumaki before I had the character. Not a good idea. And that was because originally when I got the audition, of course I didn't audition for the character originally when Marie of Harrington got the character. But when she released the character for the second season, she was like, I can't come back. I'm working at Disney now doing Big City Greens, and I'm also a writer for the show, so I don't have time. They started doing the audition process for a person to replace her. And I remember getting that audition and being like, I've already voiced and matched Marie of Harrington before. I'm gonna get this character. I shouldn't have done. Now, mind you, I did end up getting the character, but I shouldn't have done that. But here's the audition process that actually what happened, because that was a roller coaster. Because I auditioned for it, I was like, I'm gonna get this. I know it. I've already voice matched her before. I know I'm gonna get this. Not to mention, I recently worked with Viz Media on Sailor Moon, and they said they loved me, so I'm gonna get this. I didn't get a call for like a month, and so I thought, oh shoot. Stupid me. What am I doing getting attached to this character? And then I get an email that says, hey, we want you to come in for an in-person callback. This was back before the pandemic, so we had those. And I was like, oh, no, I am going to get it. I am going to get it. I swear to God, I'm going to get it. I still shouldn't have done that. And I'll tell you, it makes sense why later. And I was like, I'm sure of it. I'm going to get it. And they even told me in the studio, which they also shouldn't have done, that I was first pick for this character so far.
Oh,
and so I'm like, oh, I'm definitely gonna get this. Viz Media loves me already. They said I'm first pick for this character, and that they just need approval from Japan. That's all they needed. And I was like, so I'm definitely gonna get this character. I still shouldn't have thought that. They then tell me, by the way, we're gonna start recording. This was in May of like, I think 2019. I don't remember. It was either 2018 or 19. I don't remember. But I still shouldn't have thought that. And they said to me that they're going to start recording at the end of June. June goes by, nothing. And I think, are you kidding me? They literally told me I was first pick, and I've also voice matched Mariev before, and they didn't pick me? Are you kidding? I was angry, and I shouldn't have been. I shouldn't have been, and I know I shouldn't have. So I was all angry, and then on top of it, I was beating myself up too, because I was like, you shouldn't be angry right now. What are you angry about? Yeah. They're allowed to hire whoever they want. What are you angry about? And now, Zeno Robinson not only was in One Punch Man as some small characters, but also he works with Marie of Harrington on Big City Greens. He's a main character in that show with her. So he knew that Tatsumaki was getting replaced. This is important, and I'll tell you why. You remember this information. So on the 4th of July, Anime Expo was on the 4th of July that year, earlier that day. He went to Anime Expo, and then we met up at a party later that day. And I was like, hey, Zeno, because you know the situation, and so then technically it's not NDA because you already know the situation. Can I talk to you real fast? And he was like, yeah. And so we went privately, and I was like, I'm so upset because I didn't get the character, and I feel like I really did really well, and also I'm really upset at myself because I shouldn't have gotten attached. And he's like, yeah, I mean, you shouldn't get attached, but you know, it's okay to feel your feelings. Like, he was being a really good friend, and like I had that heart to heart with him, and he's like, don't worry, I'm sure like you're gonna get something big soon anyway, so it doesn't even matter because you're amazing. A month later, so this is at like August 1st, I get an email that says, hey, we need you to come in for One Punch Man, A Hero Nobody Knows, the video game. Are you available tomorrow? And I go, yeah, what character am I? Because they didn't list any character. Usually when you book something, they at least tell you you're gonna be some side characters, or this is your character name or something. I didn't get any of that. So I was like, yeah, what character am I? Because I kind of need to know. And the studio sends back, great, we're gonna confirm you for tomorrow at this time. And I said, great, see you there. What character am I?
In all caps, bolded.
Basically, and I didn't get a response back. I was like, and here's the thing, I knew who was directing the game at the time. So I went up to Christian Lamont because I happened to like be around him that day, and I go, hey Christian, I'm gonna be working with you tomorrow. What character am I? And he goes, oh, I have no idea. And I was like, what? No, I'm having a moment. And I don't mean to be that actor right now, but I feel like I deserve it in this moment, and I'm gonna be that actor. So one of the people on the production staff, I am actually really close with. Like I went to like Ren Fair with him. So I noticed that he was one of the production staff working on it. And so I emailed him separately so that way it wouldn't have Viz Media and the casting director like on this email. So I said, hey, Cayman, I know I'm coming in tomorrow for One Punch Man, and I saw that you're one of the production people who was working on it. Who the F am I? And I put the F word in all caps. Because I knew he would understand.
Oh my gosh.
And he emails back with, they didn't tell you?
Answer the question.
Answer the question. And I go, no, Cayman, nobody's told me. Please answer the question. Who the F am I? And he goes, huh, that's weird. They told you months ago.
Oh, he's doing it on purpose.
Oh
And he
my
still didn't tell
God.
me who the character was. And I go, what do you mean months ago? Am I Tatsumaki? And then he emails me, oh yeah, you're Tatsumaki. Are you kidding me? And so I then go to Zeno, and I'm like, yo, Zeno, like I have to tell you because I vented to you on the 4th of July, but I'm Tatsumaki. I actually did get the role. And he goes, oh, I know. And I go, what do you mean you know? What? What do you mean you know? And he's like, so that day when I went to Anime Expo before we met at the party later, I asked them who's replacing Mari Evas as Tatsumaki, and they told me. What?
Oh my
Oh
god.
my
I'm sorry.
God.
Hold on.
This feels like a betrayal. Top 10 anime betrayal.
Oh my god, I went to you and I was crying to you about how I didn't book the role and you knew? And he's like, I figured they'd tell you eventually.
Oh my God.
Oh.
I was like, you are so freaking lucky that I have known you for years and that I love you so much. But I swear to God, Zeno. And he's like, I figured you'd want to like know through the proper channels rather than through me. And I was like, not only am I upset because they told you before they even told me, the actor, but also they didn't tell me for another freaking month, Zeno. And he's like, yeah, that does kind of suck, doesn't it? I'm like, you think?
He pulled a that's rough buddy on
That's rough, buddy.
Oh, that's really funny. I mean, it's terrible. I'm so sorry, but that's so funny.
Here's the thing. No, it's hilarious. And honestly, I understand, like, studios do get, like, really worked up. Like, they're working on, like, so many projects at the same time. So, yeah, I can imagine, like, it just didn't, it got lost. Like, somebody was supposed to tell me and they forgot. Fine, whatever. But the fact that it was specifically because I was attached to that character, though, already, when I shouldn't have been. If I hadn't have been, maybe I would have had a better reaction.
Oh my goodness. And the fact that you had to go through so many different things. Yeah. And it's like you had to go through so many different hoops just to get an answer.
Yeah.
Look, my favorite part of that story is, they told you months ago.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I thought you knew already.
No, Cayman, nobody told me anything. And they also told me they were going to start recording months ago. Oh, no, we had to push it back. Nobody told me that. No one told me that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we ended up not even recording for my parts until the end of August for the second season, when they said that was going to start back in June.
Oh my gosh.
You know, that gives me faith. That gives me faith on these characters that I auditioned for months ago. You know, who knows?
Oh, yeah,
maybe
you
they're
never
not
know.
done yet. Yeah.
I've booked things where I auditioned for them a year ago.
Yeah.
And then
Mm.
like, my agent will be like, hey, you booked this thing. And I'm like, did I audition for that?
Yeah. Like,
And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, when? And then I'll look through like all of them, because I save all of my auditions. It's all on my hard drive or whatever. And I'm like, oh shit, I did like 6 months ago. Well, great, cool. Give me money.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I guess that works.
Honestly, that is another reason why you should audition and forget, because then it's like a surprise when you do book it.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
like,
you
oh,
never know.
cool. Did
like
I
that, you know-
audition?
Like,
Oh,
I
I
forgot
did.
I
That's
did that.
great.
Look at that.
I've got
Oh
one.
my goodness.
Yeah, it's the better part of finding a $20 bill on the sidewalk.
It's like it's funny because
got a
I
book.
actually technically got that message today. I got a message back in December that was like, "Hey, there's this project that we want you on. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah." Nothing.
Oh.
Until today, and we're like close to being in February now, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, so about that project that we contacted you on, are you available on Monday?" I was like, "Oh, yeah." Cool.
Sure.
And I was like, I've completely forgot that existed.
It's like when you don't talk to your best friend for months and then they message you later and you just pick up the conversation where you left off. Like, it's totally natural.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, thank you for that. That's such a fantastic story. And you know,
Oh, it's my
it's a
favorite story right
perfect-
now.
It's such a fantastic like learning. It's like a lesson. Like, hey,
Well, again, it's
here's
like,
why you
don't
shouldn't get attached.
Yeah, this is exactly why you shouldn't get attached to a character. And in this respect, I was lucky that I actually did get the character, but it's
Mhm.
exactly why you shouldn't. Even
because,
though
like,
I was lucky,
what if?
because
Yeah.
again, I couldn't. I might have not been, and B,
Mhm.
like I wouldn't have gone through all of that anguish.
Yeah, like you were like you were letting that like, you know, kind of, and I had a somewhat similar experience, and I still don't know if I've got the character yet because I just found out that they haven't even listened to those auditions yet. But like for 2 months after auditioning, I was waiting for the deadline of when they would I waited till the deadline till they stopped casting, and then after that I just waited. And I was like, I really want this character. And then I was like, I stopped thinking about it. But then they just posted on their Twitter like, oh yeah, about those things we did. We casted these 2 people like already. Like, we already casted these 2 characters, but we haven't looked through these 2 characters yet. And I'm like, don't.
Yep.
Don't think about it. I'm
Don't
excited
think about
again,
it.
but don't think about it.
I can also understand that, especially at the beginning of your career where you don't have a lot of auditions, you
Yeah.
do get attached because you don't have a lot. But first of all, practice now auditioning and forgetting, because then when
Yeah.
you get to the point where you're at my level and you're on, like, honestly, there are some days where I have like 10 auditions.
Yeah.
You think I'm gonna care
It's
about
like,
all
you
of them?
can't- you can't
Heck
think
no,
about
I
all
don't have
10.
energy for that.
Yeah, and then the next day you might
But-
have 10 more, and it's like, I can't. You can't. You just can't do that.
You can't. And especially because, like, you know, it's going to be, if you're concentrating so much on one character, you have auditions later. You're going to be still concentrating on that one character. You can't give your full attention to these new characters. So audition, forget. Audition, forget. And and again, it's a great surprise when you do book, because then you'll be like, oh shoot, did I actually audition for that?
It's like, oh, I guess I did.
That's
Awesome.
great. Who am I? I don't remember what I did.
Was that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Gotta listen to my audition again so I can get back into that character because it's completely
exactly.
gone.
And especially like a lot of anime does cast pretty quickly, but some of them not necessarily. But I find with stuff like Disney, DreamWorks, and Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, they take their time. It will be a good month to 3 months until you finally hear back on whether you get a callback or not, or even get the job. And that's regular for them.
Yeah.
So, you know, really, you want to be
can't let
stuck
that
on one
go.
character for 3 months until you
Right.
hear. And again, I've literally been cast a year later before.
Yeah.
That has
And it's
happened.
like, you got like, hopefully
So
nobody would
want
think
a
about it
whole
for an
year
entire
of you
year.
being festering. And again,
Yeah.
it's like it's better to audition and forget, because then if you don't book it, doesn't matter because you already forgot. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Or you'll be in a situation where like, oh, I auditioned for that. Huh,
Yeah.
That's what
like,
they
oh,
went with.
cool.
Cool. Okay,
Mhm.
I see why they they didn't pick me. Like, whatever. Because then it's like, oh, cool. I'm glad that show is doing well. Great.
Yeah. It's like, oh, they released it. I can watch it now. Like, I can say that I auditioned for that. At least I tried, And it's like, and then, my gosh, Corina, you're such a joy to speak with. Like, I don't want to end this, but like, we are kind of nearing the end of our time for our podcast run today. And I do want to ask a final question because I'm super curious about this. And I know that a lot of people who are just getting into voice acting or maybe just picking up classes for the first time want to know, like, how do I learn how to be a voice actor? And the answer is always like, well, learn how to act. And you're a voice instructor, so you teach voice acting classes and acting classes. So I'd really love to hear more about, what kind of stuff you offer, what got you into teaching, in the first place, what made you decide to do that?
So, actually what got me into teaching was a previous manager that I worked with as a child, contacted me and was like, hey, do you want to teach? And I was like, yeah, I need money. At the time, I was like not working at all.
Nice.
And she was like, great, I have kids that I want you to teach. And so it started with me teaching kids for on camera. But at the time also, that was at the time that I was kind of getting more into voiceover. And so I had brought up that I would love to teach a voice acting class, but she does mostly on camera, which I totally understood that was like the focus of it. So then I was like, shoot, like, I really would like to teach voice acting since that's kind of more what I'm getting into now. I feel more comfortable like teaching that since that is my bread and butter at the moment. So how do I I think I would be a good starting coach for people. And so then I actually contacted Kira Buckland because this was at the time that she was offering classes through her Discord, the VAC or the Voice Acting Club. Shout out to them, they're great. And I was doing classes through the VAC, and I had quite a few people that joined my classes and said that they really liked it. And then I was like, you know what, I could probably do this myself. And so I started doing that myself. I started with offering one-on-one classes, but then I started doing group classes because I started having way too many people ask to join classes.
You're just too popular.
And honestly, I actually do think group classes are sometimes a lot of the time more beneficial than one-on-one classes, because not only do you learn yourself, but you also learn from other people around you.
Mm-hmm.
And you get both the added way of learning of, like, not only do you learn by the experience of it yourself, but also by watching other people. So, visual learners also benefit from that as well. But even then, you might even get inspiration from your classmates too. They might do something and you're like, oh, that's actually, oh yeah, and that's why I love classes the most, because especially when you're working with other people, everybody thinks differently. So if they do something that you would have never thought of, you could be like, oh my god, I want to do that now. And also group classes are a really good way of even networking, not necessarily with the teacher, by the way. A lot of my work was because word of mouth from students that I took classes with. So for example, Zeno's one of my best friends, and it's because we took Charlie Adler classes years ago together. That's where we had our friendship. And it's funny because I always joke about it now, but I was like, Zeno, when we first started talking, I thought you were attractive, and I also was trying to hit on you, but you didn't seem interested. And he goes, wait, what? I was like, I didn't think you were interested in me. And he's like, I didn't know I had the option. We became friends that way. Kaylee Mills and I became friends by doing classes together. And like, when you start taking classes together and you start to help each other out, being like, hey, did you get this audition? Because this audition is actually really good for you. You didn't? Great. I'm going to contact that casting director and give them your email, because I think you'd be great. A lot of auditions happen that way. a lot of auditions, especially with studios, happen from people taking classes and other classmates being like, oh my God, there was this person in my class who I know is perfect for this role too. I need to tell you about them. I'm gonna
Right.
go yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so-
I definitely have had that experience in my own group classes and stuff too. It's so fun to watch everyone experiment, and yeah, like the people that you take classes with, that you learn with, are gonna be your peers someday. So,
Exactly.
like,
They're gonna be your coworkers someday.
yeah,
Yeah.
So make friendships with them and start treating them like that.
Yeah, especially, like, speaking very personally, that's exactly how our whole group here at the after party got started. Was we were all
Yeah.
classmates in Brendan
Oh, wow.
Hunter's Voice Acting 101.
Yeah.
And then little spoiler alert, we're called the after party because we all got together after class.
I love
our
that.
very
Hang
first
out.
class, we called
Yeah.
ourselves that because of that, and it's like, yeah, it's just incredible, that very first connection that we all made after that first class. And now it's like 8 months later and we're all still friends and talking and seeing each other get roles and make achievements and learn new things. It's such it's like, these are the people I can't wait to see where they are in the future.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like knowing that like a lot of your close friends are people that you took classes with in the past and are now like working alongside you. That's such that's such an amazing journey.
Oh, and it's
you know?
the best experience. And again, it's why I say audition and forget. So that way, when it finally does come out and you're like, oh, that's Kaylee. Oh, I'm so glad that if it wasn't me, it was Kaylee.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
that's
like,
awesome.
my friend.
Yes, my friend got it. I don't care if it's not me anymore because my friend got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's really heartwarming and makes me feel good that kind of, that sort of camaraderie transcends.
Well, I
sort
always
of-
view it as like a friendly competition because it is still competition. You are still competing for the same job, but it's a
Yeah.
friendly competition, and that way, it's like it's because also I put it this way. First of all, I want to make sure that if I book the role, that I was the best. I'm sorry, don't get me wrong, there's a toxic way to be competitive and then there's a non-toxic way to be competitive, and I believe I'm the non-toxic way. But that means that if I'm auditioning for something, to make sure that I actually am the best, I want to make sure that all of my peers who I know are also as good as I am are auditioning for it as well. And that way, if they do book it, great, good for them, but now I know I have something to work on.
Yeah.
And now I know that that's what I need to work on in class. Cool. Awesome. I live for that moment. So yeah, I might have not gotten the role, but it is a learning opportunity. And as an actor, you should always want to learn. And so yeah, I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I am up against Lizzie Freeman, Kaylee Mills, Kira Buckland, Christina V. I want to make sure every single one of them are in the audition pool with me, so that way I know that if I do book it, I was the best. And again, it's a friendly competition, so that way, okay, if it's not me, I'm glad it was them, but also, what did they do differently, so I know I can work on that. And that way, it becomes a constant raising the bar situation, where it's like, because competition's not necessarily a bad thing unless it's toxic.
Yeah.
Toxic competition, nah, we don't do that here.
Yeah, that's
We
not
don't
fun.
do that here. It's not fun. It's not fun for anybody, because toxic competition is where you're literally trying to eliminate your competition. But at that point, I'm like, then you're not really actually the best, are you? Because you're worried that they are better than you, so you want to get them out of the competition. Then you're actually not that skilled. Huh.
Yeah. If you're
Versus,
concerned
I
about
want
it-
to get it because I am that skilled. So I want to make sure that I'm up against the best.
Yeah.
You know, it's always
And
like,
that-
it's
that-
like Pokemon. I want to be the very best, but that means
Yeah.
I need to have and in Pokemon, I think that's actually I truly think Pokemon is a really great way of showing friendly competition, because they're all competing to be the best. Yeah, Ash makes these friends with people who also have the same goal as him, and he's still friends with them.
Yeah. It's that
heartwarming comparison.
idea of always challenging each other to keep
Yeah.
getting better and to keep climbing
And
higher.
working together to get better.
Absolutely.
Because the best thing is that also, yeah, maybe they beat me out for the lead role that time, but hopefully I'm still on the show with them, and then I get to work with my friends. And that's even better. I don't even care if I get the lead role at that point. I just want to work with my friends.
Yeah. Zulu
Zulu wants
agrees.
to work with you.
She
Zulu
wants
wants to
be doing
work with
Genshin.
everybody, too. Clearly.
Well,
Wow.
okay, gosh. It's just so fantastic talking to you. On that note though, like you have such a fantastic relationship with all your friends too, like in the voice acting industry as well. If you had the chance to sit down like this and kind of, talk to someone this way, kind of learn about their experiences or hear about their stories, who would you want to interview if you had the chance?
Ooh, I've worked with them before, but I never, and I've taken a class with them before. But as far as like sitting down and really getting into a deep dive into like their experiences and stuff, Mary Elizabeth McGlenn.
Mary Elizabeth Bickland.
Micklin. McGlenn. I can't say words. It's only my job or something.
Like what's reading? I don't know.
I
How
don't
do you
know what that is.
enunciate? I forgot.
McGlenn. McGlynn. Mary Elizabeth has been a titan in the industry, and she has worked also in on camera and in voice acting, and is directing now. And when I worked with her, she was a director, and it was for Toka Life. And so and that was the first time that I got to work with her, and that was like pretty close after I actually took an acting class with her, so that just worked out nicely. So yeah, and she has a crazy story about why she switched her focus onto voice acting, and I would love to sit down and like go through a deep dive of her whole life and her whole career.
It's interesting hearing a lot of people, like, I mean, not a lot of people go into voice acting immediately. They always do something else, and then one day they're just like, I want to try voice acting, and then they're like, I guess I'm a voice actor now. Excellent. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Like, this has been such an eye-opening experience, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule.
You're such a lovely font of knowledge.
Yeah, thank you.
You're such a great person to speak with. I can see, like, again, back on that, you don't hire the voice actor, you hire the person, and I can fully understand now why people would want to hire you, because you're just a joy to be around. So thank you. And before we fully wrap up for today, we do have a final question for you, and this is something that we just kind of for fun in the after party. It's just become a running gag, so it's up to you if you want to join in on it. But how would you feel about giving us your best ada?
Ada.
Whoa, your voice! Oh my gosh!
Ooh, I did
that
sort
was
of take on
impressive.
it. Beautiful.
Oh, whoa!
My, some would say.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. And with that, thank you again, Corina, for joining us. And just, oh my goodness, all the information that you've shared with us today, fantastic. Why don't you go ahead and just let people know, like, where can they find you if they want to take classes with you? What would they do to do that?
Yeah, so my classes, if you want to take them, go to www.corinaboettger.com and then go to the contact/classes page. Just click that. And then at the towards the bottom of the page, it kind of goes over my classes, and then it has like a contact me little fill out form. And basically you say you want more information about the classes on that form, and we can get you in on those classes. They're starting to happen less and less just because I've been getting invited to a lot of cons lately, but I promise I'm still having them. They're just they're happening less and less, so you might be on a wait list for a while, but I promise we'll get to you eventually.
Yeah, and I mean, if it shows anything with everything that you shared with us today, if somebody is interested in voice acting or has taken voice acting and wants to search for coaching, I would not know what to say basically I would highly recommend you. You've been fantastic to talk with today, and it's like I might take classes, so I don't mind being on a waiting list for a little while.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much, and to our listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us today and hanging out with us, and just it's been a fantastic session. Thank you so much. Please remember to like, share, subscribe if you think that people might be interested in hearing this too. we've been the After Party. Until next time,
Thank you for having me.
thank you for joining us.